Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Brother Son Season 1, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we have Charles kind of talking to his dad's right-hand man. The whole conversation is about trying to get, Sleepy Chan into a face-to-face. Once again, he knows Sleepy Chan's name, but doesn't actually know who he actually is and doesn't know what he looks like and stuff like that. That was a whole thing that was brought up last episode about how kind of like the triads are kind of like their own cells where people just don't really know who people are, just names and nicknames and stuff like that. But either way, he's basically almost trying to have a negotiation parlay of sorts, because I guess that was more so get him out front facing, and that way you can kill him, but also maybe find out what's really going on. Problem Charles seems like the more once again, punch first, ask questions later type. What was interesting, and this is why I still double down on I think his dad's right hand guy is the one behind this. Maybe it's just, I don't know, the wording just seems so interesting when he was he says specifically Sleepy Chan is on the winning, he's winning, because he was one of the people that was so adamant with telling Charles that he's one of three people that was adamant to tell Charles maybe it's not Sleepy Chan. His dad was saying that, the right hand dude was saying that, and then his mom was saying that. But the fact is, his dad's right hand dude to be oh, he's on the winning foot. I'm why would you say that specifically? Why aren't you being oh, why do you still think it's Sleepy Chan? You're just kind of going along with it. I mean, from one perspective of it, I'm well, you could make the argument that he means he's on the winning side because Charles's family is on the triad is on the back foot now, so Sleepy Chan is able to kind of once again, they're the top two dogs, and now that the top dog is kind of on the back step, now Sleepy Chan can move in. Maybe that's what he's referencing, but it screamed more than what you're letting on, and that you also are backing away. Like I said, just first episode, he was so adamant of, we don't know if Sleepy Chan was responsible, and now you're not giving any pushback to. I guess it's right, he wants to have a sit-down negotiations face-to-face, so you're not going to war, you're trying to, the whole point was for peace, so maybe that's why he's okay with it. But, just the fact is he still hasn't given any pushback, because every time he says Sleepy Chan around his mom's we don't know that for sure. So, the fact is the second-hand right-hand guy doesn't say that anymore since episode 1. It just seems more suspicious to me, so I'm doubling down on thinking, whether he's the head honcho of this whole thing, I think whoever it is has to know their family enough to know exactly how they'll operate. Once again, knowing that their father would show up in case Charles, he heard something might have happened to Charles, which is an interesting parallel when we think about everything with I guess Charles is his father's son, whereas Bruce is his mother's son type of situation. But it plays into the dichotomy of this episode and the complicated, like I said, relationship Charles has with his mom, and how that is in contention with Bruce's relationship with their mom. But either way, like I said, we'll get to that in a second. But to know how Charles would react, that he, once again, he's also the one who brought up the promise of, you have to protect your family, so pushing Charles out of Taipei so that he can handle all the stuff stateside while all this stuff might be happening back in Taipei. I mean, you keep the boss alive, keep him in his coma state, because obviously him dying is going to draw too much attention and stuff, and you need things to go the way you want. Like I said, I could end up being 100% wrong, but this early point in the series that's been my suspicion since episode 1, but we'll see whether it plays out or not. Also, gotta appreciate finally getting rid of that head. He ended up removing all the skin from it and smashing it to pieces. I don't know what you do with the remnants of that. Do you trash it or whatever? I suppose you just dispose of it, but still, fragments of a skull being found anywhere, just going. I guess if you're lucky enough to people only find fragments, I guess it'll work out. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if that comes back in any shape or form, or are we done with that? I mean, it's better than you carrying around the head. I mean, don't need it anymore because you got the dude's identity, you got his address and everything, so. But yeah, Charles ends up going out with Alexis, and it's this, back and forth, because she's right, I know something big is going down, and I can help you. I know your family's in the middle of this. She's I've helped so many, people in illegal like alien status and illegal immigrant status in this country, so I can help you. But it's like, right, you're a cop. Well, you're not a cop, but you work with cops because you are like the deputy DA. Like, I'm not actually going to help you. I mean, because he could easily sway a lot of this by being like, yo, we were just at the club, because you could, but also like, if you admit the truth of, well, we were there selling, my brother was selling drugs, I was trying to get him out of the mix of that, and shit popped off. I'm sure that's just going to cause more issues for you. So he, the point is just not to talk to cops in general. So despite their history, he doesn't want to. I even love when he's eating food and it's like, holy crap, it's spicy. And she's later on asking like, oh, is it something milder? And the guy's like, what, is he not Chinese? Like, how is, what, why? It's why is he such a punk? It's like, geez, Charles is getting it left and right. He's catching all the strays because he's getting it from this guy, doesn't even know that's happening. He also gets it from his mom, who I love that he's got to deal with like the backwards speak of an Asian mom of like, no, don't do that. It is that passive aggressiveness. It's just like, I love how like bleh she is, and I'm like, once again, it might not even just be an Asian mom thing, that's just a mom thing in general, but I'm sure maybe a lot of people might resonate with that even more of like, oh, that's a very specific Asian mom thing. But I think a lot of people could be like, nah, I think that's just a mom thing in general, where it's just like, no, it's fine, it's whatever. It's like not saying what you mean. It's like, well, obviously it's not fine, you see, but like Charles isn't picking up on it. She's like, yeah, do whatever I want, and Alexis is like, no, you idiot, that means you have to go right now, because she's saying the opposite of what she wants. When she's saying like, yeah, they want you to do something without them having to tell you to do it. It's almost like, we want you to do the initiative of doing it on your own and not needing someone to tell you. I also love that Charles used it as an excuse to go back to the campus so that he can learn how to make churros, because he tried to make them and it just didn't work out, and the guy was like, tell him how it works out. But they end up running into Grace, and I love that she's like, oh, I'm Grace, like Bruce must have mentioned me or something. I was like, have you guys, I mean, they've probably been in classes before, but like they've never really interacted outside of last episode. I'm like, why would he mention you? Like, you guys have only really just talked. Yeah, but I was like, oh, does she actually like really like him or something, or what? Once again, I'm also a little suspicious because I was like, I don't know. But I just love that line of like, oh, Bruce must have talked about me. Oh, he didn't? I mean, that's cool, that's fine. I'm like, once again, it's like, you guys are like properly got introduced last episode. Like, why would he talk about you? That's so wild. But I guess for her, it's like, we kind of hit it off. She's also the one that kind of dropped the bomb about the improv thing, because even Charles hadn't even dropped that. And it's like, well, she didn't know. But yeah, now his mom's just kind of like, wait, he's still doing that improv crap? But yeah, them butting heads about how to handle everything. Which, yes, their mom has shown, like, right, her way of handling things does work out. And they go back to the little mahjong spot, and it's like, oh, like, once again, her little network. They're not even a criminal network. These are just like older ladies and aunties who gossip, who know stuff. And it's like, yeah, like, because, and I thought it was so interesting where it's like, oh yeah, once you're like an older woman, like, people kind of stop noticing you, so they'll probably drop certain information around you, or like little whispers will find their way to you, and it's like, oh, let me hold on to that little nugget of information. It's like, oh yeah, this person is married to so and so, but the person she's also playing mahjong with is a person having an affair with her husband. I'm like, I guess it's the thing of everyone knows. I mean, that's the thing about gossip. It's like, you'll gossip about everyone else and not think about the fact is that, oh, there's going to be gossip about you. So, like, the word on the street must be about the affair situation, but the wife is completely in the dark, because why would you be sitting there having mahjong, playing mahjong with her type of situation? But either way. And I love that he's so out of his element, because it's like, and once again, his mom, like, nitpicking and stuff like that. It's like, oh, Jesus. Poor Charles. And then also the whole situation of like, oh, yeah, Bruce, he's got like a 3.84, but he's going to get that up here. Like, yeah, Asian standards, right? You know, it's like, oh, that's not good enough. You need to get that higher, you know? Because it also seems like, once again, Bruce doesn't seem like he's trying. He does seem like he is just like, he's doing okay and good, but it's only because he's skating by, because he doesn't, it's not like he's putting all his effort in. It feels like he wants to be a little below where he could be, just because I guess it would, you know, because he just wants to focus on improv. So maybe that has to deal with it, or maybe it's just he knows the better he does, the harder life is going to get, and he kind of doesn't want that. it led to this whole conversation of like, oh, could it be this person? And it's like, oh no, that person Kenny has like a leak. Basically, it led to like a whole conversation about Kenny's leaky butthole. But then they also found out about the #1 seafood restaurant in Alhambra. I was like, oh, what's its name? That is the name. The #1 seafood restaurant in Alhambra. It's like, hey, you put it, you manifest destiny type of that thing. You put it out there in the universe and you work hard and you make it true, because they literally are the #1 seafood restaurant in Alhambra. So it worked out. You can't say that the restaurant name isn't a lie, and it's kind of good marketing too. I'm sure that's gonna like help out on like search results and stuff like that. Oh, I'm looking for the #1 spot, and this restaurant immediately comes up because it is the actual #1 spot, but also because of the name. Like, it all plays into search engines and stuff like that. So either way, once again, the different approaches where she goes in as a customer, whereas Charles is in the back beating up the drivers, trying to pump them for information. I love that while she's talking to the head guy there, Tony, like she sees on the like security cameras her son doing all that, and it's just kind of like a, yeah, I'm gonna buy you some time while you get the information, because Tony, like, she was able to get a look at Tony's operation, but she also heard, a little bit about where he's from. He's from Taipei, who his dad was, and everything. But what I thought was so interesting, though, is when it's all said and done, it's like, once again, the differences of opinions of like how they operate and stuff like that. Yeah, Charles got the address and stuff like that of because he ends up finding out about June and going after her. But she's like, oh, what do you want, a kiss on the cheek, a red envelope? And for her, it's just like, bring him back. He's my world. And you can see that look on Charles, and we're starting to creep into what I brought up previously, where it's like she doesn't realize how hurtful that is. It's like the way she's treating Charles. It's like, yes, there's love there, but it's also, once again, that the oldest kind of getting like the rough end. It's, because I'm the Bruce in my family. I'm the baby of the family, so I can understand, and I have like 2 older siblings. I can understand. It's never been said, but I'm sure there's a little like complicated feelings on that part, because like I am like the baby of the family. I get babied, so I get that. But I can look at Charles and see, like, I had brought that up previously, like the complicated feelings he's going to have about this, because he's already got one parent who raised him to be a warrior and stuff like that, and to be his weapon, and now it's like your mom's kind of using you in the same boat, because it's like, oh, the most important thing is Bruce. She's not thinking about how much that's going to affect Charles, because she's like, no, you're grown, you're you, but Charles, he's soft, he's not meant for this. Like, Charles is a lot tougher than you think he is in a lot of capacities. It's interesting back and forth, because I think their mom sees Bruce a certain way, and then Charles also is starting to see him a different way, and it's like, it's a little bit of both. It's like, is Bruce the way he is because, oh, that's just who I really am, or am I that way because mom made me that way, because she needs me to be that way, because it's her way to keep me out of this world, because she's already got one son in, and she can't do anything about it. It's been years, he's been deep into it, and maybe she wishes she could have brought both of her sons, but the deal was only one. Maybe that's what the deal is. Part of the arrangement they had to make was one son has, and maybe it's going to be a situation of, maybe he originally wanted Bruce but took Charles, but you'd assume just because of the oldest son of it all, Charles was always going to be on the table for his dad. But maybe it could be a thing of, maybe originally Bruce was supposed to stay and Charles was supposed to go. Maybe that's it. And once again, it's like they could have led completely different lives. Bruce could have been Charles could have been Bruce. I mean, especially with the whole thing of like, oh yeah, Bruce, everyone keep busting Charles' chops about, being fat when he was younger. Like I said, it's just this complicated conundrum for Charles, where it's just like, like I said, his father does love him in his own way. He just probably didn't always show it. Once again, I think that's that Asian side of things. But, and I think the same thing is applicable with his mom. It's like, there's love there too, but that's why she probably is a little insensitive to like, oh, you're talking about Bruce, but what about Charles? Like, oh, like, am I not important to you? It's like, I've been out of your life for so long that I'm not as important. She still keeps a photo of you and Bruce, like you guys when you were younger, because I think for her, that's back before life got complicated. When your innocences were taken from you, and I think that's why she doubles down and try so hard with Bruce to kind of make up for, in her mind, her failings when it came to Charles, maybe. So either way, all the while that's going down, we have our boy Bruce and Tige getting tortured by June, because she is certain that they killed her sister May, or at least Charles is, and no matter what Bruce says, she's not willing to listen, and then ends up crushing TK's thumbs. He said I lost his thumb. I thought she like chopped him off, but it seems like, because she did have him like in a vice grip, so I'm wondering like, oh, like did she not just like she did crush them? So I don't know if there's ever any like, will those heal? Maybe if he gets medical attention enough, they'll eventually heal properly, or maybe they're fucked for the rest of his life. But yeah, it turns out TK's the reason why she knows exactly what he was. It's like, wait, is that why the cops were at my school? It's like, yeah. It's like, how'd she find me at school? That was me. She was scary. He's like, dude, do you have no balls? He's like, no. All the stuff he was saying about Bruce in episode 1, because he's like, oh, he's trying to act a little cool and like he's down and he's hard. But he's like, no, I just don't want to be like my brother, which I'm like, interesting. So he's got a complicated brother relationship. It's all like reciprocal in a lot of capacity. So I'm like, I'm wondering what that is. That was just kind of so like offhandedly mentioned. Whatever it is, Bruce immediately understood, but I'm wondering what's up with TK's brother. Maybe they had mentioned that in a previous episode and I don't remember, like him referencing his brother. Like, has his brother been to jail or something like that? No, because he didn't say he wanted to be his brother. He said he wanted to be better than his brother. So I wonder if it's like, he sees a lot of his brother in Bruce, and he sees a lot of himself in Bruce as well, where he's just like, oh, like, I'm a loser, and I want to not be a loser. Both him and Bruce want that. They just don't want to be the lamest dude in the room. So in TK's case, he's been acting hard and wanting to be cool, and it seemed like he kind of was, but it's like, no, it's all a front. And Bruce kind of does a similar thing. He gives June the wrong address when it's like, yeah, it was a Chick-fil-A. He's like, really? I made that up. And she's like, I know. I was like, oh, that's interesting. He gave her a random address, wasn't expecting probably anything to be there. Oh, a Chick-fil-A was there. Interesting. Which I love that the right-hand dude at the beginning was like, oh yeah, like Bruce is soft, KFC and Wendy's. But Taco Bell is good, which I love that. When I'm like, you'd assume like, I wonder, I guess, I just thought that was so interesting because it's like, well, those are international. You'd think they are. I mean, I know like Burger King and McDonald's are. I'd assume KFC's like international. Yeah, KFC's definitely international. I'd assume Taco Bell and Wendy's are as well, but maybe not. I'd assume so. Those are just such large chains here, at least here in the U.S. I'd assume they'd be massively international, but maybe not. I just thought that was so interesting because you're making it. I mean, I get it. They are American food first and foremost, and obviously those type of restaurants are so different, like wherever you are internationally. So I get that's where it comes from of like, oh yeah, like how it's prepared and what you actually eat in America versus those same restaurants internationally and the like menus. So that's what I was about to say. Like, why specifically them? Because those, I'm sure those exist in Taipei as well. But it's like, it's specifically calling out the American. Original American restaurants in those capacities. But either way, I'm going on this whole tangent. I just thought that was so interesting. But Bruce actually connected with June, was noticing her tattoos and her art, and it's like, oh, it's really nice. She's really talented. It's like she does her own tattoos. She's kind of, because even Bruce had made this comparison with saying like, oh, like I guess he's a little bit like May, and Charles and June are kind of a lot alike. Because the two of them have been a team since they were kids. Their parents died when they were 10, and they were kind of like living on the streets, and they were fighting off the wolves. But it's like they were such a good team that now we built up a business for ourselves. Now those wolves came to us for protection. So for her, she didn't just lose her sister. She lost the only other family she had. She lost her best friend. And it was also, her sister wanted her to kind of like cool down a little bit. So that's why she was told not to come to the... I forgot what she said. She said, my sister told me to go do something else, and that's why she wasn't at the club. So it is a thing of, yeah, they do run the operation together, but she was kind of... I don't know if it was mainly like May in charge and June kind of back to play, or were they like equal leaders in it? I don't know. Because she does say this line later on to Charles where it's like, the oldest gets the most respect but the least amount of love. It's like, because in June's case, she's used to being like... She probably saw a lot of May getting the attention when they were younger type of situation, which is even sadder considering, like, yeah, those memories are from before they were 10 because they lost their parents pretty early on, sadly. but she also knows what it means to be the older sibling and the more responsible one, having to shoulder all those responsibilities. So there's a lot of commonality between her and Charles. It's kind of dope that Bruce was able to kind of break that whole situation up using. He's like, oh yeah, I'm an actor. She's like, you're improv. He's like, yeah, but it's the foundational structure. But it's like, right, from a motivation standpoint, it doesn't make sense for Charles to come all the way here just to kill May. Like, the fact of the matter is, it's like Charles has people coming after him. It's like, yeah, and May sadly died because of that. It's like, yeah, I've had like 4 different people try to kill me over the time I've been here. It's a new record. In fact, he's like, I'd actually bump it up to 5 because of you. So June, what Bruce says makes a lot of sense, and it just frustrates her because it's like all this time she wasted coming after them. But it's also like, God, you're right. It's kind of wild that they all got invited to dinner. I love that it's not just Bruce, but also TK's getting a little baby. But she's like, because especially when she's like, oh my God, your thumbs, like, how could you let this happen? And TK's like, how is any of this my fault? It's like, I guess you can make the argument it stems back from you because you're the one that tried to convince Bruce. I mean, I guess the argument could be it's all Bruce's fault for like spending his tuition on improv. But yeah, you could see this look on Mama Sun's face when she's seeing Bruce hanging out and laughing with Charles. And I think there's like this complicated feeling. Like you see this like look on her face where it's just like you're not quite sure what she's feeling in that exact moment. Is it like pride because, hey, both of my boys are together again, they're laughing, having fun, but also like, man, like I've never really seen Bruce happy like that? Or also 3 of, man, something could have happened to my baby boy and he's too deep and mixed up in this. Like, once again, she keeps making the promise of, oh, we'll go back to a normal life, everything's going to be okay, but will it be? Once again, how much of that is her trying to convince herself versus trying to convince Bruce and everyone else? But even June says, like, yeah, that pert kid with his confidence will end up getting us all killed. And so she's like, all right, fine. You can do improv, but you have to keep up with your schoolwork. Which, you once again, you see it where Charles is kind of, like, pissed. Because it's like, once again, Bruce gets to do whatever he wants to. He doesn't. But it even talks to him later on. It's like, no, you did good. You're tougher than most people think. He's like, no, I wasn't tough. At the end of the day, I didn't want to let you down. And I think there's a little bit of, like, pride in, like, like, you like my opinion like matters so much that you know, which it kind of sweet. I think Charles kind of sees like the sweetness in that word. It's like, oh, thanks, little bro, that you just you stood strong, because at the end of the day you didn't do it because like, oh, you're trying to be tough. It's like, no, I did it just because I don't want to let you down, bro. You know, that's what that is. And so there is some pride in that. There's something powerful in that. So, but they still want to make their like sit down with Sleepy Chan happens, so they're going to go after Tony, and it ends up being June who handles it. She's kind of creating such a massive spectacle that he will have no choice but to come here, like, if they do something to Tony, because it turns out Tony was married, his first wife was, no, it was Tony's dad's first wife was Sleepy Chan's second cousin. So it's like, right, he's family enough that you kill him, it's going to draw enough attention. And she, like, cut off his arms, his legs, well, his hands, his feet, had him, like, in a box ready to, I think, kind of be shipped type of situation, and stabbed him. She made a real spectacle of it. And Charles ends up calling Alexis, because it's like, I think from a professional standpoint, he's trying to throw her a bone as deputy DA, you know, trying to help her career. But I think it's also like, right, if you get the deputy DA involved, then it becomes even more of a spectacle. And lo and behold, one of the cops there, obviously it's the dude that's neck deep in all this, because no one knows who these red ribbon guys are, just that they are working their way up and making everyone fear them. But he's the dude that Mama's son ran into at the giant dude's place. And I love that, like, it's this little showdown where you're like, oh, is she going to fight him? Is she going to do something? Like, what's going to happen? And then she just starts banging on the wall and screaming. I was like, oh, I love how that scene did not play out the way, because you're like, oh, is this going to turn into a tussle? It's like, no, it didn't. It makes a lot of sense why it was handled that way. But I love the subverting of your expectations on how that scene was going to play out. I love it. And just like the quickness in which she was like screaming and banging on the wall. The home dude runs away. Also, we saw with the tattoo, he's the same dude that June had tattooed recently. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.